Hope is here. The way to break free with your host, Angela Pedigo, will light a flame within you. Host Angela Pedigo is an author, speaker, and certified life recovery, grief, and joy restoration coach. Angela uses her own life experiences to help you navigate and guide you to success. She also has developed tools that incorporate her faith and her drive to overcome any obstacle in life. So please welcome the host of The Way to Break Free, Angela Pedigo.
Welcome, everybody, to The Way to Break Free. I'm your host, Angie Pedigo. I am so excited about my special guest today, Miss Rosie Ojeda. Rosie has such an amazing testimony. It's going to be a comeback story that you are going to want to watch. So stay tuned in. Today is really going to be good. Rosie, thank you for coming on the show. I have been feeling that you were supposed to be on this show for quite some time. So I don't know who it's for today, but I believe that it's going to go out. So
that's right.
Yes. Well, Rosie, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I'm Rosie Ojeda, and I was born and raised in California. By the time I was conceived and brought into this world, my parents had converted from Catholicism to Christianity, or born again Christian.
Yeah.
And so for as long as I can remember, I was raised in church. I was dedicated to the Lord. I have two other siblings, an older brother and a younger sister. But at the time, it was just me and my brother, and we were dedicated at the same time. And when I was about 10 or so, I gave my life to the Lord. It was a great day, but when you're that age, a lot of it was almost fear. I was scared to go to hell.
Yes.
And but I did love the Lord because I was raised in church. I loved everything about it. Going to church, VBS. We had Bible studies at our house. My dad was in the band, for worship. My mom was in the choir. It was a lot of, our lives were all things church. And so, let's see. Even though I was really young when I accepted salvation, I did understand what it meant, but I didn't realize as I got older, there was a lot of things that were going on within our home that didn't always look Christ-like, and it didn't discourage me from wanting to be a Christian, but it I started holding on to a lot of anger and bitterness and resentment, unforgiveness. I had abuse, physical abuse for various ways. My parents were raised that way on how to discipline your child when they were out of line or not listening. So it was excessive, though. I still remember the first time my mom disciplined me in a not so loving way. And
how old were you?
I was in third grade. So
just a little girl.
Very little. And I never understood, because it was a very random reason why she disciplined me that way. Not random now that I'm a parent, but I would never discipline my children that way. I still haven't till this day. And because I think there's other ways to do it and not break their spirit about teaching them. And so I had stayed after school to play in the park in third grade. And the rule was after school, you come home right away. But I didn't. I wanted to play in the playground with my friends. I had lost track of time. My brother had come and picked me up and was like, "You're in trouble. Just wait till you get home." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal, right? I was just playing. I'm safe. I'm okay." And as soon as I walked in the door, it was a different side of my mom than I had ever seen him in that way. And it was almost like, because she's saying, "You scared me," and while she's hitting me. And I'm like, how do you show that you were worried by hurting me? She knew it was wrong what she had done. And she apologized, cried, told me she would never do that again. But it preceded a lot in my upbringing. So that stemmed a lot of like anger, bitterness, resentment towards my mom. And still in a Christian home, living that Christian life. But then because of all those things that started rooting in me, it led to addiction and more anger, which stemmed into other ways that outlets of dealing with what I was feeling. And
can I ask a question?
Sure.
How old were you when addiction became an outlet?
10.
Yeah.
Because
I think, and I think that's important to mention here, not just because I'm saying so, but from someone who's lived it. A lot of times parents are the last to know when a child has resorted to addiction. And you would be shocked at how many, like majority of the people that I coach in addiction, generally it's age 9 to 12, but parents assume it was in high school, teenagers in their 20s, because they don't really open up and tell them that. But a lot of times it's the 9 to 12-year-olds is where that's really finding them. And you think, no, they're so little. How do they even know what to do, or how do they even get their hands on it or whatever? But it's everywhere.
Yes, it was. And so I remember I had gotten slapped by my mom, and it sounds like a slap is like not that big of a deal, but it's excessive when she's angry. And I remember my parents had went somewhere. My dad was a smoker. So that was the first time I was like mad. And I went in the garage. I knew where his cigarettes were, and I lit one up. Almost choked to death because I'm like, how does he smoke these things? And I'm like, okay, no. I took a couple puffs and I was like, yeah, no. Then the following week, I got hit again, and I waited for them to leave, at some opportunity to leave, got another one, this time finished the whole cigarette. And it kind of mellowed me out. And I was like, oh, this can be, not knowing.
Yes.
Now knowing, this became my way of dealing when I was upset. And so that later on stemmed then into alcohol, which crazy. My dad was an alcoholic. I say was because he's passed now. But the Lord delivered him from his alcoholism.
Aww.
So there was never alcohol in our house. But of course, friends, their families had alcohol in their home, and after school or before school. And it became something that I had to ingest just to block out my anger. And I thought it was like really a good outlet. I don't know why. Weird, right? Smoking. My dad smoked. I didn't like that he smoked, but then I picked it up. He was an alcoholic, had stopped drinking by the time I was born, because again, my parents gave their life to the Lord. And then I pick up that generational curse, and it lasted pretty long. I always thought it made me happier. I wasn't like an angry drunk. Because I didn't even think I was drunk. I was functional, happy, just didn't have to think about anything else. Then, of course, it led into actual drugs. And that really just makes everything disappear, so we think, right? And then, eventually it led into sex, which I never really understood why it led there until later on. I don't remember this happening to me, but my mom shared it with me that a family member did inappropriate things to me.
Oh, yeah.
So I never knew that it must be something I suppressed. I don't know. But I always had like this hyper desire to be that way. And that led into a whole bunch of other crazy things. But
that's a common occurrence, I find, when people have, experienced that kind of abuse. That is a side effect.
Yes.
Hypersexuality. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought about it, did stuff with people, and and I never knew why. I never knew why I was drawn to that. And then it made sense, like, oh my goodness, later on it made sense. And, but all of those addictions kind of began at a very young age. And because I was so angry at my mom, she had no idea about any of that stuff. I say that, but of course, even though she did do what she, as far as it disciplined me the way she did, she still loved the Lord, and she had crazy discernment. I mean, it's wild. Because I'd be like, Lord, how did she know that? Because again, even though I was living a very real sinful way, I still knew the Lord was there.
Yes.
And so I'd be like, how did she know that, Lord? Every night I would, after doing all the things, I knew, God, I need to come clean, and I would repent, cry, say I wasn't going to do it all over again the next day, but never knowing how to actually heal.
Yeah.
And let him heal me. I only knew about confess. I don't want to go to hell.
Yeah.
I don't want to burn. I don't want to do those things. So I knew that. It sounds so sad now that I am not this way anymore. Thankfully, thank the Lord. But back then it was like my get out of jail free card is how I saw it. I could live however I wanted to live. I know Jesus. He died for me. I accepted him. And so all I need to do is confess every night. And that was kind of my repetitive, I'm a Christian. I live in a Christian
use
home.
Grace as a license to sin.
Yeah.
We do. I'm so glad you brought that up, because we really do. And we convince ourselves that Jesus is okay with that.
And he's not.
He's not at all. I mean, if we believe the Bible, we have to understand he is not okay with that.
That's correct. That's correct.
It's not even well, I can't help it, or it's just the way I'm made, or it's what I went through. No, he wants to heal us. That's the word. That's the word right there. Heal. He wants to heal those places. Yeah. And it's not just you need to quit doing that. You need to stop doing that. No, let me heal that so you don't want to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a difference.
Yes, and I had no idea at the time. So from like about 10 to about 17, it was I did whatever I wanted in secret. And I lived a Christian in public when I was at church or Bible studies or youth group or whatever else we were involved in, and no one knew.
Yeah.
And so I ended up getting into a relationship that I liked the guy. I think he took advantage of that, and I was sexually assaulted. But in a twisted way. I didn't really understand. Again, I had like this weird hypersexual thing going on, and I didn't understand that it's okay. He's my boyfriend. We're, but that was all the relationship was about. It was just that. And I ended up getting very sick. I hid it for a little bit and I couldn't anymore. I was in pain. I needed my mom to take me to the emergency room. And that day was the first time I spoke what I had been doing to my mom. Between those ages, 10 to 17, I was hiding my whole life from my mother because I was so angry with her. And so,
what do you feel like you needed the most in those years?
I needed her to love me and like live out being a Christ follower, even at home. And now understanding that people fail us constantly. But back then I'm like, it's my mom, you know? And that was really it. But we went to counseling. And it was a Christian counselor.
You and your mom?
Me and my mom. And we found out so much stuff about each other. Very similar life. And again, because the old school way of doing things, you discipline your children this way, don't ask, don't tell kind of things. Nobody needs to know your dirty laundry.
Breeds the next generation of curses.
Yes. And come to find out a lot of the things that I went through at a young age, my mom went through. And that's where I found out about being sexually abused when I was little. Same thing happened to her. Using substances as an outlet. She had done that in her earlier years.
And you didn't know that up until then?
No, not in the extent of any of this. And how she was disciplined, very similar. And that generational curse is so crazy. And I never even really understood what that was until the first God encounter 3 years ago when I went to one. And I had no idea. I had no idea at all. How deep this all goes. But God is so good because he's healed all of that.
Yeah.
So when I was 17, we went to counseling, me and my mom. And we learned a lot about each other. We learned about how to have a healthy relationship.
We're going to pause right there because I want to see where that takes us. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
We're back from the break. Rosie, I want to go back and ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
In between the 10 to 17, you when I asked you what you needed, and you needed your mom to love you, did you have anybody in your circle that was a safe place for you to be able to go talk to, like to try to get help, or were you having to try to figure out how to hold all this inside yourself?
For a while, it was me just holding it in, and my outlets were my safe place. Weird.
Mm-hmm.
Destruction was my safe place. But at the time, I was in, I think it was in junior high or just starting out high school. I can't remember the exact date. But my mom's younger sister was living with us. And my mom had just finished hitting me. And I was like, forget this, I'm leaving. I started packing up my stuff, and I don't need this. This is crazy. And, I'm speaking all this stuff out. My aunt overheard me, and she come into the room, and she told me, because I could taste blood in my mouth. So I hadn't even seen my face yet. And I could taste blood in my mouth, because I knew what my face would look like prior when my mom would get really upset. And so she come in the room, and she said, Rosie, what's wrong? And I said, I can't deal with this. I can't go anymore. I can't take anymore. Like, I can't. This is too much. I don't understand how a mother can do this to their child. And so she said, look at your face. And so I looked at my face in the mirror. Nothing. Not one bruise, not one red mark. My mouth was not bleeding. And she had said, your mom's hands are bruised. And I go, what does that mean? And she goes, I think something is protecting you.
Oh.
And I was like, okay. So that really sat in me. I just cried. We talked. Her and I talked for a while. My mom stayed in her room. I think she was freaked out. Nonetheless, I would be, if I saw, I knew what I just did and my hands are bruised.
Do you think it affected her that she saw that you weren't?
Yes. I didn't realize it at the time, but then I started analyzing why she stopped hitting me. And my aunt was like, you're okay. You're not going to leave. Let's just talk about this. And I was like, okay. And my aunt had lived with us, I think, about a year or so. And looking back at it, my parents were helping her out, but I feel like she was there to help me in that moment, because I felt unseen, unloved, like nobody cared.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
And then a second time it happened in high school. This was in high school. I had gotten ready. I had just gotten disciplined, if you want to call it that, the night before. And I stayed in my room. I packed up my whole room, my closet. I left a few things out to make it look like I'm still here. I put my bags inside the closet. I went to school. I left school early because I planned on coming home and leaving. my uncle, my mom's youngest brother, calls me out of nowhere. I don't know why. Well, I know now. It was the Lord. The Lord sent him to me for some reason, not for some reason, to save me from doing something stupid. And he calls me and he's like, I answered the phone because I'm not supposed to be home.
Yeah.
So I was like, and I could hear his voice, hello? And I'm like, hello? And he's like, Rosie? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, what are you doing? And I said, nothing. And he stayed on the phone with me. He said that the Lord placed me on his heart to talk to and basically talked me off the ledge. I didn't tell him what I was doing. And then the third, so those were the two people for some reason that the Lord was like, boom, I'm going to use them. And
as you're saying this, it's making me think of Hagar with Sarah.
Yeah.
And when she was having to take all the abuse from Sarah, and the angel came and showed up to her and said, go back.
Yes.
Go back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And God's done that in my life throughout, even up until this year.
Yeah.
Actually. But yeah, so not another person, but the third time I tried to leave my home at home, I had pretended to go to school, but didn't actually go to school. Waited till my parents left, came home, and was going to do the same exact thing. But by the time I came home, my mom was already home. And I was like, oh, shoot. And when I tell you my mom has crazy discernment, she does. She said, she opened my closet and she said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm leaving. And she's like, no, you're not. And I said, I am. And she goes, no, we're going to go through counseling. And so.
How did you feel in that moment?
And I was like.
Were you grateful? Did you have hope? Or were you like, no way?
Right. I was like, okay, you've been telling me all my life you're not going to do this anymore. You're my mom and you love me and all of the things. And now you want to do this? Like, a little bit was like, yeah, right, in my brain. We went through counseling, and I would say the first couple sessions, I was a rock. Walls up, heart hardened. I don't want to hear any of this stuff. I'm just going through the motions by my time. And but the Lord used that counselor to chip away, place a heart of flesh in me, let my walls down. And what I learned about my mom and our similarities, we understood each other for the first time in a very long time. And
what was that like?
It was amazing. It was amazing because I truly didn't understand.
Yeah.
Like why I was being treated this way.
Did you feel connected to her finally for the first time? Maybe?
Yes.
Ever?
Yes. The Lord used our brokenness to heal our relationship. And it wasn't perfect.
Yeah.
Because I was a teenager and did still very much so about my addictions. But at least I knew that I could talk to my mom now.
In a whole new way.
A totally different way. The Lord restored my love that I had for her because I really did hate her. It's sad to say. In my childhood, I didn't care whether she lived or died at that point. And going through that, I was like, wow, like I loved her. I understood her. She understood me. And we could deal with things that we butt heads a lot. We're very similar. So we butt heads quite a bit, but we learned different ways to deal with it as opposed to just physically hurting me, you know? And so it was amazing. It was amazing. Aww. And it was the first time I could honestly say I had a real relationship with my mom, and I still do. Till this day. I have forgiven her. The Lord's healed me of that. It gets a little sensitive because when you think about it, it's rough to live that way in a Christian home. But no one is perfect. And for some reason, I put I put my parents kind of like on this pedestal, which I'm sure most kids do,
Mm-hmm.
but they're still human beings,
Mm-hmm.
and we fail, and the Lord still can move in
Yeah.
those areas. And just as He gives me grace, I needed to show that also. And just as He's forgiven me of my past,
Mm-hmm.
I needed to forgive, and I needed to love her the way He loves me, all even now till
Yeah. So did you start noticing changes in her?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So we learned like a little outlet, like, Mom, give me time. Like, if things were getting heated, I'd be like, Mom, let's just, that was one of our things. Can we take like a 15-minute just so we both kind of separate from each other to calm down? Because it's going to probably turn into something we're trying to avoid, right?
Was she receptive to
The
that?
first time, no. She was like, how dare you talk to me like that? And so, of course, we had another counseling session, and I shared it. I was trying to be honest because I really did want something different,
Yeah.
And so I shared it with the counselor. I said, she wasn't having that outlet of 15-minute break or whatever.
Yeah.
And so we talked about that more in that session. And the next time I said, Mom, I need 15 minutes. And I learned how to say it a little more calmer than, you need to give me 15 minutes, kind of thing.
Not triggering.
Yeah, like I was triggering her by
Yeah.
being aggressive in the way I was also saying I needed that time. And so I was like, I need 15 minutes. And so, like, remember, I think you need 15 minutes. I need 15 minutes. Let's go. And so we started doing that. And then eventually just how we communicated with each other was different. And it's not 100% perfect, but I mean, I really can't go a week without talking to my mom.
Aw.
And I mean, we talk, she's still in California, and we talk for like hour minimum, 3 hours max.
Aw.
Every time we speak. So, it's amazing. It's
That
amazing.
is-
We read, like, she wants to know what we learned at church. And, so I share the whole thing. And what we learned in Bible study, I share the whole thing. And what's going on with the discipleship. It's just amazing. And then vice versa. Like, she shares just that. And then I feel like I encourage her and she encourages me.
The comeback story is so amazing. Like, I love it. We're going to take a quick break on that note, and we'll be right back.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality? But it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating. Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Rosie, we have gotten up to those teen years. You guys have gotten counseling, relationships starting to change and actually form somewhat a healthy relationship.
Mhm.
What was it like in your adult life? Like you're in your early 20s, I guess. What was adulthood like?
So I started working
Mhm.
from 17 to about I would say 2020.
Mhm.
I did not drink anymore. I didn't smoke anymore. I didn't do drugs anymore. I felt like the Lord fixed my mom and I's relationship, and that was when I rededicated my life to the Lord in those years.
Mhm.
And I ended up getting baptized. I was back into church more, went on an inner cities missions trip to New York. It was amazing. I got to do so much outreach in the 5 boroughs of New York. It was a wonderful experience. Um, I ended up getting a little bit of a church hurt during that experience, though,
Mhm.
and I didn't realize at the time. But but all along, I still had like this very present like sexual issue,
Mhm.
and but as long as I kept it under wraps, and again, told the Lord I'm sorry, I felt like I was okay.
Mhm.
Um, um, then because of that church hurt, I kind of stepped away
Mm.
from church for a little bit, focused on just working, and still hypersexual. And my anger came back like
Mm.
with a vengeance almost. It was kind of crazy. It happened at work in a random way. I didn't say this before, but I used to cuss like a sailor,
Yeah.
like every other word.
Mhm.
Um, And so working, you can't talk like that. I worked in collections at the time, and I was 19, around 19.
That's a tough field to work in.
Yes. And I was doing great. I loved my job.
Yeah.
One day, this call that I needed to collect some money on, guy cussed me out. And of course, the anger arose in me, uh, destruction. Like I wanted to either break something or hurt someone.
Mhm.
Couldn't do either one of those in a company. So um, I went over to one of my coworkers and I asked for a cigarette, went outside and smoked my first cigarette since I was 17. And I was
Mm.
like, ee! But it brought back some weird comfort.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yes.
And then I started drinking. And then I started cussing again. And little by little, it just snowballed. I
Mhm.
was back. Still had a great relationship with my mom, but hit all that part.
Mhm.
Um, and it was pretty wild. I started just kind of inching my way away and back into how I know how to control when I'm hurt.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
yeah, that happened. And then I started getting into. At the time, I was in a relationship who I was engaged to for 4 years. We were together for 4 years, but engaged. And then towards the end of it, and he cheated on me 4 different times.
Mm.
I finally ended that relationship. It was also not a godly one. Premarital sex obviously was very much so part of that relationship. I left him, decided I'm not going to be with anyone in a commitment. I'm going to do what I want to do. So I dated whoever I wanted to date. I had a really distorted view of what dating meant.
Mhm.
I know dating now is not really biblical, but back then it was like, I have no commitment to them, so I can be with however many people I want to be with and sleep with however many people I want to be with because the person I was supposed to marry didn't care anyway. And I guess that's just it. So I did that for a while. Um, then I met another person, got into an actual relationship with this person next. And he was a cop. He was very broken. I was very broken. It was a lot of sex
Mhm.
too. Um, he had trust issues from his past with his mother. I had trust issues just in relationships. And so then he started accusing me of being unfaithful. If any other person wanted to show interest in me, not to do anything, but just spoke to me, he was very possessive. It was a very dysfunctional relationship. I ended up breaking up with him, and he stalked me for like about a year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he told me it didn't matter because it wasn't stalking according to the penal code, blah, 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 whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I was
So
like,
you couldn't do anything about it?
So I thought, and I didn't do anything because he's the law, you know? He's a cop. And so my brother and my dad got involved, very not Christian way of handling things. And then he eventually left me alone. And then I was like, I don't want to be with anybody. I don't want to be with no one. I'm not going to date anybody. I don't want to do any of this stuff anymore.
Was there a lot of trust issues?
Yes.
At this point?
Yes. In relationships, big time. And so I just focused on just having fun, drinking almost every day, multiple times a day, drinking at work, smoking a lot, partying, going to clubs, bars. The friend group that I had, they all got high, so I was also doing that. And just a lot of destruction, but I felt in control of my whole life and just having fun, not taking anything serious. At this point, I didn't really even think about the Lord in that area. But there were instances where I know it had to have been him because I should be dead. I should be dead. I don't know how I got home sometimes. I probably he was definitely guiding my car because I don't know even how I got in my apartment. But again, I didn't see it that way. I just thought, oh, I was lucky.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I ended up meeting my husband. Well, actually, we could back up a little bit. I was sexually assaulted by one of my. I think I did talk about that already. And so throughout all of those other relationships I had, that was my way of controlling what happened to me. As long as I say I want to do these things, then I'm okay. And even if I felt uncomfortable, I convinced myself that it was okay.
Yeah.
And so when I said, I'm not going to date no more, I'm not this, not that, I met my husband. We worked together. And we were friends for quite a long time, though, because, again, I didn't want a relationship. I didn't want to be with anyone. I didn't want to even have sex with anyone. I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to drink, smoke, get high, and have fun. And that's exactly what I did for a while. And I met him, and he knew my whole life because we were friends. My whole life. And it's so funny because he's like, he never believed all of this because it sounds insane. Like, I was telling him, you know, looking back at it, people probably thought I was crazy, like insane doing all these things. But he didn't believe any of the stories. He thought I was just trying to make my life sound interesting. And I'm like, oh my goodness, are you kidding me? Why would I make this stuff up? You know, like I wouldn't wish any of this on anyone. Why would I want to even?
Yeah.
But that was that. He had just gotten out of a relationship with his, was married prior and he had a daughter. And so he had a broken situation going on, broken home. His marriage ended. He's a single dad. And we were just friends. We were just friends hanging out. One of my best friends at the time was a roommate.
Mm-hmm.
They were roommates. And so I was spending a lot of time there because I was seeing my friend.
Mm-hmm.
And little did I know he was having feelings for me. But again, like, we were just friends. I didn't see him that way. My friend had to go to New York for a wedding, and she had given him my phone number. And he called me out of nowhere, and I was like, this felt awkward.
Yeah.
Because I was like, we're friends, but you don't have my personal information like that, you know? And so one thing led to another, and we started dating. All along, I thought he was divorced. We were having sex. We both agreed, no, neither one of us want to get married because we both had broken past. And I had my own place. He had his own place. So we didn't live together at first. And then we did. We ended up moving in together. A lot of brokenness because neither one of us had dealt with our past. I decided I can't live like this. Like, you have a kid, which I loved her. I still do. She's the best daughter. I don't even like calling stepdaughter.
Yeah.
She's the best. And I figured, kind of rewinding back to when I was 17 and I got sick, I was told I couldn't have children.
Oh.
So I figured, I'm with this guy. He's awesome. We're having a great time. He has a kid already. I can love her. I didn't really want to replace. I wasn't trying to replace her mother.
Right.
But I was like, I'm going to love her. I'm going to spoil her. She's awesome. She is the best kid.
Oh.
And so that's kind of where it headed. But then, you know, with his past marriage, that was really, a lot of that trickled into our current relationship. And again, all this time, I thought he was divorced and they were just separated. And so then I was like, all of a sudden I got Christianese back into me, and I was like, I'm committing adultery, you know, and how dare you, I can't do this, you know, and not realizing like I'm literally living in sin with you. It's not you, it's both of us, right?
Yeah.
And so anyways, I moved out of our apartment together, and I find out I'm pregnant. And I was super confused. And needless to say, I needed to fix that problem. So I thought,
we're going to pause right there. We'll be right back.
Yeah.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them. Rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies. Find settings that allow them to be the most productive and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Rosie, we're getting into a really big spot
Yes.
in this journey. So what happened next?
So I ended up, we both agreed, since we weren't living together anymore and all that, that an abortion. Mm-hmm. I always thought abortion was like, it's her choice kind of thing. And so I didn't really see any kind of craziness with it until it was being done. Mm. And I broke down, and it was a wild feeling, a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, a lot of condemnation. Mm-hmm. And I was just broken even more. 6 months later, we ended up getting married.
Oh,
yeah, we got married. We must have conceived my son on our honeymoon, because he was born 9 months later. Aww. So yeah, so it was really awesome. I didn't think I could have kids, so he was a very big surprise.
Things turned around quick, didn't they?
Yes. And I was just like, wow. My pregnancy with him was actually really rough, though. And I felt like it was my punishment. Aww. My blessing turned into my punishment for what I had done with my first baby. And I was actually, the doctors tried to convince me to abort him. Oh. He was going to have Down syndrome. He couldn't live past 6 weeks after being born. He had a heart condition. There's something wrong with his abdomen. Like, every ultrasound was a nightmare. Mm-hmm. But my husband and I both decided, if this is the baby that God is giving us, then we're going to live and raise this baby. He's going to live, and he's going to be raised and loved no matter what. Oh. So we made that choice, and I'm glad we did, because he has an amazing calling on his life. Yeah. So.
You can tell it radiates.
And I'm like, not today, Satan. But yes, God has had tremendous plans. I felt like that was almost a test. I don't know, trusting God that he is going to turn this into a blessing, and then the enemy trying to convince me to abort my baby again. Yeah. And I want to believe I passed that test.
Yes, you did.
Yes. And so still a lot of brokenness. Fast forwarding to 2020. Within that year, COVID happened.
Yes.
My husband's job, he had a really good paying job. I had also had my second child, Samantha, my baby girl. And I hadn't gone back to work after I had her because of this great job my husband had. And but prior to having her, way prior to having her, there was infidelity in our marriage on both sides. That doesn't all come out until we moved to Tennessee. The Lord actually, we decided to move to Tennessee in 2020. My in-laws, they bought a retirement home here. They asked if we wanted to live in it for about 2.5 years. That was the time frame to when they were going to retire. And my husband was like, the only thing that's holding me here is this job. Well, he got laid off because of COVID. And I was like, we're moving. All this time, we didn't know that each other was unfaithful. Yeah. And it had stopped long before I had my daughter. But it was just this hidden secret in the background. And we each didn't know. So we moved to Tennessee. I'm freaking out. I'm in a new place. My whole family's in California. My little family of 4 is the only people in Tennessee. And talk about having to rely on the Lord. We relied on the Lord 100%. It took him a while to get a job here, but we trusted that the Lord was going to make a way, and he did. He got a job. Another God moment was that first 3 months or so when we moved here, freaking out in a new place. I called my mom, was like, I'm freaking out. My daddy's so funny. He was like, just come back home. And my mom was like, no, you need to listen to the Lord, submit to your husband. And I'm like, what? I opened my Bible to submit to your husband, Ephesians. Wow. And I'm like, I hear audibly in my ear, submit. And I just, my heart sunk. So I'm like, okay, Lord, you brought me here for a reason. And so then I told my husband, we need to find a church. We need to find a church to go to. And he was like, okay. And so we found New Vision.
That's awesome. You guys have been through a lot there. God encounters. You went through, like, there's a lot of healing that's went on since you've been here.
A lot of healing.
I love watching you and him and your kids every Sunday. Like, I love watching your little family unit because you can just tell that the hand of Jesus is on you guys. It's, I don't know, it's amazing. Yeah.
So at New Vision, we ended up going through a marriage class.
Nice.
Which I feel was preparation for restoring our marriage.
Yes.
Because later on, I heard the Lord say again, tell him. And I listened. It was rough, and I was obedient. And I come to find out what he had done, what I had done. And because of that marriage class we took at church, it really helped us to heal from that brokenness. And our marriage is stronger because of the Lord. And our family is just going hard for the Lord.
You all are serving in so many ways. We could keep talking forever. Yeah. It's just beautiful what God has restored in your life and in your family. And I want to thank you for coming on today and sharing that, because there is hope. Like, there's so much hope. She's probably going to have to come back on sometime. But I want to thank you guys for listening today. Thank you for watching Bold Brave TV. Like, subscribe, and you will be notified each week when we go live. And we look forward to seeing you next week.
This has been The Way to Break Free with your host, Angela Pedigo. The one thing Angela attributes her personal victories to is her relationship with God and her deep faith. Tune in each week and hear stories and testimonies of people in personal and professional trenches and how they overcome them with their own faith in God. The Way to Break Free has something for everyone, everywhere. Right here, Wednesdays, noon Eastern on the Bold Brave